Let's dive in. Tell us about the panel. What were some of the key takeaways that were discussed?
Well, it was interesting because we're on a panel hosted at the Jefferies conference. Currently, they're banking a lot of the Canadian companies that, as we know, are listed down here on the US exchanges. And so we're talking a lot about the Canada market, we're talking about the international market, but the reality is we also talk about the US market. The US market is gigantic, right? It's the biggest market opportunity. It's where most believe that the global brands will be born. And because of the federal illegality that still surrounds cannabis here in the US, it can't be the center stage topic, right? We're talking about companies that are listed here that don't do any business here, but the companies that do business here are all listed in Canada on the CSE exchange. So it's a little bit backward, but it was a great dialogue. We talked about the market opportunity, we talked about the progression, the trends in the different form factors. As you guys probably know, people are moving away from traditional marijuana, your smokable flower. They're moving into exciting categories like vape, edibles, and as you mentioned, beverages. So we talked a lot about that. We talked about how we think the brands are going to be built, whether they're going to do it directly with THC and cannabis, or whether they're going to use CBD as well to help get their brand more mainstream.
Right.
So a lot that we covered, a lot of institutional investor appetite. It's just getting warmed up, and certainly someone like Jefferies getting involved in the space is an overall positive for everybody.
So what is the sentiment right now in using CBD versus THC in products? Is there a general sentiment?
Yeah, well, I think everybody's excited because of the Farm Bill and CBD is quote unquote legal, right? And we're waiting for more guidance on FDA and how CBD can be used with food and with beverage. But for now, whether you're using tincture oil or whether you're using a vape pen or a lotion or a balm, you can do that with CBD and you can do it nationally. So the ability to have interstate commerce, the ability to get these products into mainstream retail, convenience stores, pharmacies, even big department stores are carrying CBD now. We heard about the news from Barney's, and I think more will come. So that's what's so attractive, is just the ability to push this product at a much bigger scale due to the opening legality due to the Farm Bill. And so I think people are going to leverage that to try to build brands and ultimately pivot those brands from CBD, which as we know is non-psychoactive, but it still has some healing properties, is what they say, into THC, which has the psychoactive effect and can be used on a broad range, whether it's medical, wellness, or even for adult use, recreational purposes.
We talked about the market here in the US, but what about in Canada? Now that we are in environments where it is acceptable, where it is legalized, that you can be a user from a medicinal or a recreational standpoint, what are you looking for in the opportunities there? What was discussed? What were some of the takeaways?
Well, so Canada's off to a little bit of a rocky start with their adult use program. It started in October of last year. There's been some supply shortage issues, and there's also a general lack of retail outlets. So they're building the retail footprint basically from scratch. Some provinces are ahead of others. One that's been behind is Ontario, which as we know is the largest from a population standpoint. So the general consensus was that the Canadian LPs are continuing to ramp their production. They want to make sure they have supply, but they also are anticipating further retail outlets to become open and available, and that's what's ultimately going to let them engage with the consumer. Today they're a little bit concerned that a lot of the transactions are still happening in the illicit and black market, and they're wanting to see those move into the legal market. And another big catalyst for that is going to be in the upcoming October 2019, where they're going to allow vape pens and they're going to allow edibles and beverages. And most people say that because those products are available in the black market today and not in the legal market, that's one of the main drivers that's not really unlocking the full potential of what we should be seeing in Canada.
You mentioned a lot of the different use cases for CBD and THC. You recently wrote a piece for Forbes titled "Drink Up, the Next Frontier in Cannabis is Beverages." We see these large food and beverage companies trying to diversify their portfolios, changing consumer tastes, all these buzzwords we hear all the time. What do you think the future of CBD or THC-infused beverages really looks like, and who's going to be the driving force there?
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement around beverages. We know Constellation Brands, who's a beverage leader in the alcohol, wine, and liquor spirit space, invested in Canopy Growth, who's a leader in the Canadian cannabis space. And so you got to think that they're working on formulations and they want to bring really effective products to the marketplace. And that's what we've been missing. So I think it's the technology. Most of us, if we go out socially, we can consume alcohol and it's a measured effect, right? And we all know that one beer equals X and two beers equals Y, and we don't have that with cannabis. Plus you have the rapid onset. So you drink a beverage, wine or beer, you're going to feel it within minutes. Cannabis has been missing that. Typically the beverages available today, they don't taste very well. You take it, you don't know how you're going to feel, how hard it's going to hit you. And Also, you don't feel that effect for maybe 30 minutes up to an hour and a half. So it's very hard to have a social experience around that. So the technology has to improve. We're looking for beverages to come out that have a rapid onset, that have a measured dose, and that dissipates, so that after you consume a couple beverages, presumably you could hang out, chill, wait, and an hour later you could drive home. And so we just don't have that. Look for that technology to really be the catalyst for that certain category within the space.
Absolutely. Lots of opportunity. We'll see where the industry continues to move from here. Nick, such a pleasure to have you back here with us on Cheddar.
All right, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That's Nick Kovacevich, who is the CEO of KushCo.